We have a surprise for you. Well, a historic event has just taken place, and people all around the world are watching it with bated breath. This monumental event is the long-awaited ceremony for the Third Temple, and it has just now taken place. The anticipation and excitement that has been building up to this moment in history are overwhelming, leaving many people wondering what the future holds for the holiest location on the planet that has caused the most contention. Join us as we talk about the significance of this momentous milestone and what it may signify for the world as a whole in the following. On God's schedule of prophetic activity, the next major event that will take place is called the Rapture of the Church. There is still unfinished business with regard to the predictions before the rapture can take place. That is a matter of time. It might take place at any moment. In point of fact, the only thing that is preventing it from happening right now is the kindness and mercy of God, who is long-suffering. The fact that there are no signals of the rapture does not change the fact that there is at least one key indicator that it is very near at hand. On the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where the current Jewish temple now stands, this sign indicates the current state of preparations for the construction of the new Jewish temple. A prominent rabbi in Jerusalem named Rabbi Nachman Kahane, who is 75 years old, is convinced that a temple will be constructed on the Temple Mount within his lifetime. He also believes that everything necessary to construct that temple is available right now. Only two Jewish temples have ever existed in the history of the world. The first, which King Solomon constructed on the Temple Mount and which stood for 390 years before being demolished by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple, which was built on the same site following the Babylonian captivity, survived for 585 years until it was destroyed by the Romans in the year AD 70. As the Antichrist takes control of the globe, the end-time scenario described in God's prophetic word requires that the Jewish temple will still be standing. It was Rabbi Kahane's students who established the Temple Institute in 1987 in the Jewish section of Jerusalem's Old City. Rabbi Kahane was responsible for training everyone who is currently leading the drive to rebuild. The Institute has prepared men for the duty in the temple and amassed all of the instruments that are necessary for a temple, such as the table of showbread, the altar of incense, and the golden menorah. It is said that the menorah, which is now on exhibit in Jerusalem facing the Western Wall Plaza, is covered in 95 pounds of pure gold and is worth $2 million. An engraving that appears to show the first menorah, which was a candelabra with 7 branches, may be seen on the Arch of Titus in Rome. This has led many people to believe that the original menorah was taken to Rome after the destruction of the Second Temple. It's possible that the first menorah can still be found in Rome. It is a laborious reconstruction that the Temple Institute has undertaken. In addition, the Temple Institute is confident that it has found the Ark of the Covenant, which was most recently seen in King Solomon's temple. 3 Jewish people, 2 rabbis, and a Jewish activist, all of whom are working for the construction of the Third Temple, claim to have visited the site. For additional information, see Where is the Ark of the Covenant. Additional activities. Jewish trips onto the Temple Mount are led by Rabbi Yehuda Glick, head of the Temple Mount Heritage Foundation. The goal of these tours is to promote familiarity with this holiest of Jewish places before the Second Temple is constructed. Recently, he guided a group of 10 paratroopers from the Israeli Defense Forces on an educational tour of the Temple Mount. This marked the first time that uniformed IDF personnel had been on the Temple Mount in a decade. According to Rabbi Glick, members of the Paratroopers Brigade have a unique bond to the Temple Mount. During the Six-Day War in 1967, Israeli forces captured that hill, which ultimately resulted in the city of Jerusalem being reunified. Despite the fact that the Temple Mount is considered to be the holiest site in Judaism, Jewish people are not permitted to pray there or ascend in large groups since the Waqf, which is comprised of Muslims, controls the area. After the reunification of the city in 1967, Israel made a show of goodwill by handing control of the city over to the Waqf. Rabbi Glick is rallying the Jewish people to come together, prioritize restoring the temple, and make a concerted effort to travel to this holy site as part of his call to action. He was in charge of guiding the Temple Institute's preparations for the rebuilding process for a number of years. The Temple Mount faithful, led by Gershon Salomon, have a cornerstone prepared in advance of the construction project. It is supposed to have been fashioned out of diamonds and blessed with water taken from the biblical pool of Siloam. A training center is located close to Jericho in the Jordan Valley. This center instructs men who think that they are descended from the priestly family and the tribe of Levi on how to serve in the subsequent temple. During the course of the past quarter of a century, it has educated thousands of people from all over the world. The majority of the priestly vestments have been prepared and are currently being stored. The first set of priestly clothes was given to Rabbi Kahane, and he keeps them hanging in his closet so that they are always ready to be put on. The following clothes are the result of several years of research. It was required to travel outside in order to collect the appropriate colors for the garments, which included a trip to Istanbul in order to purchase purchase mountain worms, which are the source of the appropriate shade of scarlet. Also, the special flaxen thread was brought in from India. Since the destruction of the Second Temple, the knowledge of how to achieve the ideal shade of blue has been lost. That is, until the Patil Tekalet non-profit organization identified it as the Murex trunculus, also known as Hexaplex trunculus, the banded dye murex that can be found near the Mediterranean Sea. In addition, the craftsmen at the house of Harari are very close to finishing the 4,000 harps that are required for the Levites to play the music in the temple as ordered by King David in 1 Chronicles 23:5. Rabbi Yoel Karen is of the opinion that the features found in Ezekiel 40-46 will be followed in the construction of the Third Temple. However, before that happens, the Jewish people will build a structure that is less extravagant, just as they did when the Second Temple was built 2,500 years ago. What lies in here for us? As the Antichrist takes control of the globe, the end-time scenario described in God's prophetic word requires that the Jewish temple will still be standing. He will profane it, and the Jewish people will be expelled from the Temple Mount once more because they will continue to be obedient to God and refuse to worship the Antichrist. This will lead the Temple Mount to be defiled. Jesus, in his discourse at Olivet, validated the prophecy made by Daniel. He referred to the act of profanity as an abomination of desolation and stated that it had not yet taken place. At some point in the future, the Messiah Jesus will come back to Jerusalem and establish his temple on this holy plot of land. Then, from that temple, during the millennial period, he will rule the entire world. The passages in Ezekiel 40-46 provide a vivid and accurate description of that temple. Nothing that has been constructed so far matches the description given by Ezekiel. Not the tabernacle, not the first temple that King Solomon erected, nor even the second temple that was dedicated by Zerubbabel and wonderfully restored by Herod the Great. None of these structures were able to withstand the onslaught of fire. Even the building that is currently in the process of being designed will not be that temple. Rather, it will be the temple of the tribulation, which must be operational by the middle of the 7-year period that is referred to as the time of Jacob's distress. The Dome of the Rock, a Muslim shrine with a golden dome that currently sits atop the Temple Mount, presents the most significant challenge to the construction of the Third Jewish Temple. Even though it is not a mosque, this structure still adheres to Islamic law. There have been discussions on the possibility of there being a Jewish temple on the Temple Mount at the same time. Nonetheless, many prominent figures in the campaign to reconstruct Jerusalem have shared their opinion with me that the Dome of the Rock ought to be demolished. They say that they don't have a plan when I ask them how they intend to make that happen. They intend to defer to the Messiah on that particular matter, but they also intend to be prepared to begin construction as soon as he clears the way. A question for the church: do you feel ready for the rapture? If you are, live in such a way that you will be filled with delight when you hear the wonderful sound of the trumpet that God will use to summon us home. And if you're not, do not worry about it. When I first open my eyes in the morning, I always have the feeling that this is going to be the day. It would be prudent for us to keep our ears open for the shout of the Lord, the voice of the archangel, and the trumpet call of God, in light of everything that is taking place in preparation for a Jewish temple to be constructed on the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is currently occupied by 2 religious buildings, the Mosque of Omar, also called Al-Aqsa, and the Dome of the Rock, coated in gold because it is believed to house the rock from which Muhammad is reported to have risen to heaven. Due to Muslim claims of sovereignty, there is little prospect that Jews will be able to build the Third Temple on the Temple Mount. Islamic tradition ranks the Al-Aqsa Mosque atop the Temple Mount as the third holiest site in the religion. The book of Daniel has a prophecy about the future temple. The unambiguous prophecies of Daniel and Ezekiel, as well as the explicit statements of Paul, call for the preparation of a modern-day priesthood in expectation of the imminent construction of a new temple. While he will make a firm covenant with the people for 7 years, he will put an end to sacrifice and grain offering in the middle of that time period. Muslim leaders have often stated their opposition to any plans to build a Jewish temple on this land. If we look to Paul's epistle to the Thessalonians for guidance, we get this clue: let no one trick you in any way, for that day will not arrive until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will defy and endeavor to elevate himself above everything held in awe or considered divine, eventually staking claim to a throne in God's hallowed temple. During the time of peace into the 3.5 years of Jacob's suffering, also known as the Great Tribulation, billions of people will follow the one destined for tragedy, who is often termed the anti Messiah. There is no way to stop this person from coming to the new temple and demanding to be worshipped as God there. Yet we may get ready to recognize the warnings of his coming and fortify our faith so that we can withstand the widespread persecution that will be the norm at that time, even unto death. Nonetheless, millions of Christians are currently experiencing the worst of the tribulation as they see the murder and destruction at the hands of Muslim radicals, despite the widespread optimism that a rapture will spare them from the coming tribulation. When asked about the end times in 1975, Ruth Graham, wife of evangelist Billy Graham, remarked, "I would rather prepare myself to go through the tribulation and be delightfully surprised by an unexpected rapture than expect to be raptured only to find myself going through the tribulation. Even if this isn't the most scholarly method of approaching the problem, it still has merit. With the help of Yeshua HaMashiach and the Holy Spirit, we can be prepared to deal with adversity and spot false messiahs. Peace, hope, joy, and righteousness will be ours through the Ruach, and we shall be victorious in the face of persecution until the great day of the Lord, when all persecution and suffering will be ended." That's for the video today. We will be right back with more, so don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.